Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei. I'm so excited to paint with you today. So today we are going to be painting another page in our watercolor journal book. And we are going to be doing, or I'm going to be doing, a landscape. I am going to be using inspiration from the local area around me. I live in a very kind of diverse region of lots of mountains, valleys, and meadows. I'm going to be using some sap green, probably lots of sap green today. I'm also going to be using, I keep forgetting my phthalo blue is very wet still. I'm going to use some phthalo blue in there. It looks like almost black on camera. Let's lighten that up a little bit. And I'm also definitely going to be using this green gold color. And let's see, what else can I throw in there? I'm going to throw in some magenta, but I'm going to use that in combination with my greens to mute some of them. And then last but not least, some Payne's Gray. And it looks like a very bright, vibrant color palette, but I'm going to water things down quite a bit and use all different values of these colors. So we're going to get a nice subtle, lots of varying values. All right, let me clean off some space to work here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find where my horizon line is. And here, I'll just draw a little bit for you. So we're going to put in a horizon line here. And then this is going to be kind of meadows with some trees. I am going to put a tree right here. Okay, so I'm just going to draw that in there, and I'm going to try to keep it a very light and airy tree. Let me bring it up over here this way, and over here this way. Okay. And then behind this, so this is my foreground with the tree in it. Behind this, we're going to have kind of a mountain range. Here, and this is definitely inspired. There's a little fire tower up here, inspired by, because I'm not looking at a photo. This is not accurate to the actual landscape perfectly, but inspired by a mountain range in my area. All right, and then so we're gonna have this nice airy tree up here. And what else? What else can we throw in there? Two little mountain ranges. And then, you know what? Let's bring something down a little further here. So even though this is the horizon line, this little hill is going to be kind of cropping up in here. And then that looks good. I'm going to try to keep it simple and a little more airy than I usually do. I'm going to keep the sky almost like a really light color, very, very, very light blue. All right, so I'm going to take some phthalo blue. I'm going to water that way, way down. And I'm going to do my sky. It's almost got like a greenish tint to it because I didn't wash my brush out very well, but I'm going to go with it. I got this weird like purple. And as I'm going, I'm just adding water, and I'm going to paint right over the tree because I'm going to keep it light and leaving like streaks. So you have like some really, really light white areas and then some darker areas. And what I'm going to try to do is really play up some contrast. So I'm going to have really subtle light areas like the sky, but some super dark, almost like I'm using a brush, or not a brush, I'm sorry, a pen so ink, some super dark details, but not a lot of middle ground, not a lot of middle values. I want to have a really, I don't know how to describe it, but a really wide range of value, but like remove the middle, if that makes sense. So really light, really dark, with a little bit of middle range. Okay. And I'm just thinking out loud here. This is kind of developing as I'm painting. So let's go in with some sap green, and actually let's go in with some green gold. So I'm going to go in with green gold. And again, water that down. And I'm going to put in this kind of meadowy area. So lots of water. I'm going to leave some really light, almost white areas. So this is probably really hard for people to do, is to leave things unpainted or very lightly painted without messing with them too much, which also is something that I struggle with a little bit, to paint subtly, but then find the places where you're going to put your dramatic, darker colors. So subtle, subtle. I'm going to have a little bit darker in the mountain range area. And then my tree, I think, is going to be have the most contrast to it and be like the focal point. Okay. So we got to let this dry and then think about what we're going to do here. So I think for this middle range mountain, I'm actually going to do some sap green and phthalo blue. And again, I want to have some texture in there, some areas that are a little darker, a little lighter. But gosh, this is such a light, subtle color palette for me, but I'm loving it. It's something new. All right, let's take a little bit of that sap green. So this is really dark, and I'm just gonna drop in a little bit of it to kind of give the impression of some canopies of trees, or like some variation in something going on up here on the mountain. Okay, and now I'm going to leave it. So there we have that nice contrast of these dark areas that kind of fade into light areas. Actually, this shape is really bothering me. So I'm going to, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to extend it. I'm going to there we go. I'm just pulling out some of that color. Okay, now I'm going to leave it. I'm going to let everything dry. I am going to figure out kind of what I'm going to do with these two areas here, these white areas, and then we're going to paint our tree. So let everything dry. I think I'm going to paint the tree and then figure out what I'm going to do there. All right, we're back. And we're going to get into our tree. So I'm actually going to take this green gold color, and I don't know if you saw before, it was hard to see, I drew it very lightly, but I'm going to have this tree, but it's got kind of clumps or bunches of branches. So I'm going to put my one here, and then I have another one that comes up here. I'm going to leave some white space. And I am going to come in and do some darker color. This is just layer one. Okay. Now I'm going to get a smaller brush. Where did I put my smaller brush? Size 4. So I was using a size 10 and now I'm using a size 4. All right, so this quinacridone magenta and whatever green I have here, I'm going to make a brown. So green and magenta are going to make brown. Almost always, depending on the green and magenta you have. So it's making this lovely dark brown. I'm going to add some Payne's Gray to it to cool it down and make it even darker. It's not as red or vibrant. And now I'm going to take this brown. Actually, I'm going to do one layer that's a little lighter. And I'm making a very thin trunk. Get a little bit thicker down here. But we're going to definitely pump up the contrast on this once we get the overall shape kind of put into place. And then we're going to put some branches kind of in a few of those white spaces. Now I'm just adding darker color, letting some of the lighter color be, like if it doesn't cover up all the lighter color below, that's fine, that's great. There we go. All right, so looking good so far, but we definitely have to add some shade or shadows to the leaves on the tree. So we're going to use a darker color. So this is sap green. And we're going to put that kind of on the bottom. Blend it out. I don't want to cover up all of the lighter color. And you can even put it in like different areas of the tree. Like it doesn't have to be all like right here on the bottom. Like you can say like this little clump up here is going to have a little on the bottom and this little clump up here. And again, I'm just kind of blending it out. This one down here, I'm going to make even a little darker using a little phthalo blue. Maybe even right here. But I'm not going to get too carried away with that. go. Beautiful tree in the foreground. I haven't decided if I want to give it a shadow or not. Actually, yeah, I'm going to give it a little bit of a shadow. Just a little. So a tiny little shadow that kind of peters off there. Actually, there we go. All right, so let's finish off these areas and see if there's any other. I do like this. I like this tree. I like the contrast. I like how light the ground is. But let's get this other area filled in. All right, so we have this little guy back here. So I'm going to use, again, all my greens are kind of blending together here. I'm just using whatever is on my palette. So this mid-range kind of green, it's slightly different than the other one, but I'm definitely going to add some darker little accents up there, just like I did to the other one. And you know what? I'm going to bring in a few more darker accents right to the top here of what I did earlier. And then down here, I'm actually going to make this more of a blue color, I think. Actually, let's put in some sap green along this edge here while that's still wet. Let's see what happens. That's better. Put in some dark color. And it's kind of making its own little grass line, like along, I don't know, it could almost be seen as a riverbank now. Although this shape up here doesn't quite work, but, or just a tree line. We're gonna bring this down here. Yeah, that works. All right, this was fun. Let's put in our little fire tower at the top there, which is just going to be in Payne's Gray. Little tower up here. At the top of the mountain. And then I'm going to just take a little bit more Payne's Gray. And I'm going to just make sure this trunk is nice and dark. And then I'm going to be done. There we go. All right, thanks for joining me for this lovely landscape. Let's take off our tape and see what we have with those beautiful borders. I'm gonna try to save this tape and reuse it. Whoops. There we go. Thank you so much for painting with me. I really enjoyed this very subtle one, very limited kind of color palette overall, even though it looks like we got a lot going on here, the way we mix them. This was a lot of fun. I really like this, that I've left this really light. I normally wouldn't do that. I'd keep painting, but I think it gives this having really light here, a little bit of mid-range and some really dark contrast makes this really interesting. So thank you so much for painting with me. Don't forget to check out the description for links to supplies and materials that I use on the regular, as well as like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and share it with a friend if you think someone else will enjoy these videos and following along. So thanks so much, y'all. Take care, and I'll see you for our next watercolor journal page very soon.